Of Morning Cafe this lovely Thursday morning. My name is Freddie Ndimuli, and of course we just go straight to the Christmas countdown. 60 days to Christmas, how about that? The countdown continues.
Yours truly, Stanley Nyarungiti. It is a Thursday. What we do each and every single Thursday, giving you advice and tips and bringing experts right here on matters relationships. How can you really better your relationships? And this particular morning, we'll be having a very intriguing conversation about, matters, the art of meet the parents. Mm-hmm. But we'll definitely tell them more later.
Introduce your mpua.
Oh, yes.
Ama, you keep introducing every other new one that you have and keep confusing the parents.
You seem to have a lot of input into that.
Yes, that's a conversation we'll be having at around 8 a.m. And of course, you can keep on interacting with us at TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. The hashtag is Morning Cafe. I'm Flora Limuki.
The highlights now.
And to the highlights now, fate of Governor Kawira Mwangaza now lies with the Senate after all 59 members of the Meru County Assembly present during her impeachment motion unanimously approved her removal.
Buckingham Palace hosts reception for Kenyans living in the UK ahead of next week's state visit to Kenya by King Charles III and Queen Camilla.
Meanwhile, in Nairobi, City Hall to start crackdown against hawkers in the city centre today, following Governor Johnson Sakaja's declaration banning hawking on roads.
Okay, let's now take a look at the top story before we get down to the day's diary. Now, the United Kingdom's King Charles and Queen Camilla has hosted 400 members of the Kenyan diaspora at Buckingham Palace in London. The reception was to mark the 60th anniversary of Kenya's independence from Britain and came ahead of the royal couple's state visit to Kenya next week. A statement from the Kenya High Commission in London said the guest list comprised Kenyans and friends of Kenya, drawn from charities, pharmaceuticals, the arts and entertainment, education, research, fintech, healthcare, hospitality and tourism. Now, investors focused on Kenya and diplomats were also present, this according to the High Commission. Principal Secretary for Diaspora Affairs Roslyn Jogu represented the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Foreign and Diaspora Affairs Minister Musalia Mudavadi at the reception. She was joined by Manoa Esipisu, Kenya's High Commissioner to the UK.
Right, and away from that, and that is one particular diary we'll be having next week, early next week, when King Charles and Queen Camilla visit. But away from that, today is day 4 of the KCSE exams, and definitely over 900,000 candidates are sitting for this exam. Over 10,700 exam centers. This particular week had started with the whole French, German, and Arabic orals, and as well as some music and Kenya Sign Language practicals. Away from that, as we flip this diary with you, ICT Cabinet Secretary Eli Duale, as well as his defense counterpart Aiden Duale, will be the chief guest and keynote speaker at the National Defense University, Kenya, on a symposium on enhancing cybersecurity for national development. That is today. Moving on, today is the immediate former President Uhuru Kenyatta's birthday, and on this, Jubilee Party members will be convening at their headquarters for the same. We definitely expect to see how things will be turning out if the birthday boy, quote unquote, will be there, and how things will really be. Moving on, in matters corridors of justice, former Kipipiri MP and 3 others are expected to appear in court today. They're charged with abuse of office, and fraudulent disposal of public property. And another highlight, and on that particular diary, before we cross over to Today in History, Cabinet Secretary of Education Ezekiel Machogu is expected to appear before the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Matters Education, on matters the capitation of funds, well, among other details on the order paper for the National Assembly as well as the Senate. I'll be following up on that for you. Let's take a look at Today in History. Back in 1979, what definitely happened then. The president of South Korea, that is Park Chung-hee, and 5 others, including the president's bodyguard, were shot dead by the chief of his intelligence service, Kim Jae-kyu. That is in 1979. In 1994, Israel and Jordan signed a peace treaty. To end 46 years of war, the treaty was signed by Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin of Israel and Prime Minister Abdel Salam Majali of Jordan. The ceremony is attended by President Clinton. And it's interesting, since then and what is happening right now, these are the kind of bits that we should actually be hearing from that part of the world, signing treaties from Israel as well as Palestine. That is a day's diary. We definitely will be updating it as we move on from around 9 a.m., getting also into the county diary. But let's dive into the dailies this morning. We do start with the Standard.
Yes, of course. We kick off with the Standard and very interesting headlines this morning. And the big headline on the Standard this Thursday morning, the flying president. Airborne, President William Ruto has a penchant for flying. So great is his love for travel that it appears he cannot pass up any opportunity. So far, he has been abroad 38 times. Even as back at home, little seems to be moving. From the university funding crisis to the high cost of living quandary. The story is on page 2. And the Standard has not spared the president in its description of what he has been doing. And a nice map of the globe and with the routes that the president has used in his latest travels. He's been to Belgium, China, Comoros, DRC, Republic of Congo, Djibouti, Egypt, Eritrea, Germany, Israel, Mozambique, Netherlands, Rwanda, Senegal, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, Switzerland, and Zambia at least once. And he's gone to Burundi, France, and the UK twice. And he's been to Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, and the US 3 times each. I think this week he was in Saudi Arabia for a day.
Oh, yes.
Yes, he just dashed. He just jumped the way you jump into a matatu and dashed to town. He jumped onto the presidential jet and dashed to South Africa, I think, for lunch with the king. Oh, yes. And he was back.
It's interesting, when I was writing yesterday's diary, I wanted to write the president in Saudi Arabia. And then the next minute I see him in Uhuru
He's back home,
Gardens.
yes. I think he was in Saudi Arabia just for a lunch date with the king, and he was back within hours. Interesting. So yes, the flying president, that's a big headline on the Standard this morning. Other highlights, and the Standard has given prominence to this story. Usually it's quite a busy front page with a number of stories, but you can see almost 3/4 of the page, of the front page, dedicated to the president's travels, and drawing a parallel with what is happening at home with a university funding crisis and the high cost of living that we're not about to see the end of. Other highlights on the front page of the Standard this morning. On the top strip, pressure mounts on government to pay university funds. And this is the parallel they're drawing with whatever the president is doing. Mm-hmm. There's so many problems back home, and as far as funding for universities, capitation to schools. Schools are yet to receive their money, and then you see this kind of spending. And on varsity funds, pressure mounts on government to pay varsity funds. That story is covered on pages 6 and 7. Another big highlight, Mwangaza shown the door again. That story, the national pages 8. On the inside, pull out this Thursday on real estate, Ruto's minimalist plan for social housing. And in sports, Onana, last gasp heroics from keeper. That story is on page 40. And if you could just flip the page, The paper to page 40, Maguire and Onana help Man United sing redemption song. A night of remembrance for Bobby Charlton turned into a night of redemption for Harry Maguire and Andre Onana. And these are the results from Tuesday's UEFA Champions League. Galatasaray 1, Bayern Munich 3, Inter Milan 2, Red Bull Salzburg 1, Union Berlin 0, Napoli 1, Benfica 0, Real Sociedad 1, Braga 1, Real Madrid 2, and yes, Man United somewhere 1 versus FC Copenhagen 0 at home, the Theatre of Dreams. They should have done better. RC 1 versus PSV Eindhoven 1. And then Sevilla hosted Arsenal at home, but then Arsenal beat them 2-1. And you see, that's how important that game was. And you should see the headline next to this one. It's so sweet to trust in Jesus. Gabriel Jesus scored a goal and grabbed an assist to help Arsenal get back to winning ways in the Champions League with victory over Sevilla. And yes.
Yes, Stanley.
60 days to Christmas, it is so sweet to trust in Jesus.
Oh, yes.
Hallelujah.
That's the standard this morning.
I'll stick with Bob Marley's redemption song.
Well, let's have a look at the Daily Nation this morning. The interesting headline we have there: revealed Haji's NIS shakeup and new order. National Intelligence Service Director General Nudin Haji has been a busy man since his appointment in June. The former DPP has been working on crafting a spy agency that is more responsive, effective, and aggressive in securing the country's interest. And this has come with both structure and personnel changes, including the agency's first female deputy spy chief. Interesting story there on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. Looking at the top strip of the Daily Nation this morning, Jubilee Wars, Uhuru's faction as the last laugh as Sabina Chege loses House post. That story there is covered on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Some matters, Meru County Governor Kawira Mwangaza is impeached again for the second time in less than 12 months. And looking at what we have on the right strip of the Daily Nation, city schools shut down due to tough economic times, and parents of the schools in Eastlands, Nairobi were caught off guard after the school's management surprised them with a memo on Tuesday saying it was closing for good. That story there is on page 3 of the Daily Nation. Approve a police mission to Haiti, MPs now asked, and the country's National Security Council has asked Parliament to approve the deployment of at least 1,000 officers to lead a multinational security support mission in troubled Haiti. That story there is on page 6 of the Daily Nation. And UN agency warns of halt to Gaza aid operations, and the UN agency says dwindling fuel supplies could force it to stop assistance operations in Gaza as calls mount for humanitarian pause in the fighting. That story there is on page 31 of the Daily Nation. And on the property pullout, artificial intelligence and other modern technology in real estate. That is what is featured on the property this morning. Some matters land round now. A double loss for woman caught up in Mavoko Njiru land cases. And in a span of 1 week, Ms. Christian Lona's investments built over 2 decades have gone up in smoke following the recent demolitions in Mavoko, Machakos County, and a court ruling ordering squatters living in Njiru in Embakasi East, Nairobi to vacate by December 31st or face a forceful eviction. And in numbers, 1 million shillings, Kenyan shillings, is the amount Ms. Lona has spent to buy 4 plots in Mavoko, Machakos County. Terrible story there. Now let's have a look at what we have on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. And MPs to NEC, you must do this to curb exam cheating. And at a glance, the MPs are proposing these measures to tame cheating of exams, increase markers' pay per exam, pay examiners on time, pay security officers manning the exam centers, increase the number of marking centers, reduce the distance learners cover to reach examinations centers, and release capitation on time. Also, the 2 batches of exams released at once, not picked twice. And finally, DCI and the Communications Authority to raise red flag and probe any cases of exam cheating. And that is the CS for Education, Ezekiel Machogu, is expected before the National Assembly Education Committee this morning. Also featured on the back page of the Daily Nation, manufacturers raise goods prices by 8.9% on higher input costs and taxes. And that is what we have on the Daily Nation this morning.
Katika gazeti la Taifa Leo, vidokezo sawia na gazeti la Daily Nation. Lakini taarifa kuu pale ni Raila alizindua unga feki. Ni swali hilo. Wadokeza kuwa ripoti ya KEBS yaonyesha unga wa mokwa una viwango vya juu vya sumu aina ya aflatoxin. Masuala ya uchunguzi haya, kinara wa upinzani Raila Odinga alizindua unga feki baada ya ripoti ya shirika la kukadiria ubora wa bidhaa nchini, ukipenda KEBS, kuonyesha kuwa unga wa kiwanda cha kusaga mahindi cha Kigoto una viwango vya juu vya sumu ya aflatoxin. Waswahili wanaita kuvu. Nimefahamu hiyo leo kwa aflatoxin ito kuvu.
Every day you learn.
Every day you learn. Mengi ni katika shirika la kukadiria ubora wa bidhaa nchini. Hiyo niko najua. Mengi ni katika ukurasa wa pili. Unaweza fahamu mengi kuhusu unga feki. Vidokezo vingine, hatimaye Sabina Chege afurushwa. Na Taifa Leo dokeza kwa spika wa bunge idhinisha uteuzi wa Mark Mwenje kama kiranja wa wachache. Taarifa hiyo pia katika ukurasa wa pili. Na Taifa Leo yauliza kuwa ni tamaa au ni bahati mbaya. Mwanamke apoteza ploti 4 Mavuko, yuko hatarini kupoteza nyumba Njiru. Pale juu, Mackenzie alibeba wafuasi kama kondoo. Hii ni kulingana na DCI. Wafuasi wa mhubiri Paul Mackenzie walihamasishwa kutoka Malindi hadi Shakahola kwa lori. Masuala ya michezo hapa, hofu baada ya Jesus kujeruhiwa. Jesus ni kati ya wachezaji wanaotegemewa na kocha Ateta. Hiyo ndio taarifa kuu. Taarifa kuu katika gazeti la Taifa Leo, Raila alizindua unga feki.
Swali hilo.
Let's
focus on the Star. The Star this morning matters education and the KCPE exams. 15 choppers to airlift KCSE, KCPE papers. Ministry to spend $500 million shillings to transport exam papers to flood-prone areas. And this is ahead of the KCPE exams, which kick off on Monday, with the rehearsals being conducted countrywide tomorrow. Some 3.6 million candidates will sit for the national examinations in 72,252 centers countrywide. The story covered on pages 4 and 5. And a very interesting photo there of the CS for public service. Commander Kuria takes charge of his troops. Yes. CS Moses Kuria in military fatigues there. And this generated quite some discussion online on X, and I could see some exchange between the CS and lawyer Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi about his mode of dressing there. And the lawyer was suggesting that President Ruto should tame his CSs because he was describing this kind of action as living or fulfilling childhood fantasies.
The whole wearing
military fatigues. Commander Kuria takes charge of his troops. That's on the front page of the Star. Other highlights: lost ID, landed man in jail for crime he did not commit. That's on the bottom strip. Other highlights: Jubilee is a party and Chege is its whip rules speaker. And elsewhere, DPP gets more time to review charges in Savula theft case. As we leave the front page of the Star, another highlight on the top strip of this page. Chelugui, I have no link with Qatar Jobs Farm. Was just doing my job. That story is on page 8. He says it was an official obligation. And that's the front page of the Star this morning.
Let's have a look at the People Daily this morning. The top headline there, Meru MCAs send governor home. Impeached for the second time, 59 ward reps vote to kick out Kawira Mwangaza, accusing her for violating Constitution. Court declines to stop a process as ruling set for tomorrow, and senators have the final say as far as this matter is concerned. That story there is on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. And on the top strip of the People Daily, Uhuru Kenyatta, astute leader, turns 62 today. And as the retired president celebrates his birthday today, the Kenya Airbook Editorial Board shares in-depth insights into the man, how he scaled the ladder of leadership and his legacy as Kenya's fourth head of state. And a happy birthday to the former president.
Happy birthday to the former president.
Oh, yes.
And away from that, King Charles hosts Kenyans in UK ahead of the Nairobi visit. That's what was featured on our top story this morning. Still on the People Daily, shipping costs to come down in race to beat Dar, and charges affecting the port of Mombasa will be reviewed downwards to increase Kenya's competitiveness over Tanzania and raise volume of cargo pledges CS. And that is what we have on the People Daily this morning.
Speaking of charges, the front page of Business Daily takes a look at how thin your wallet is becoming. 1,000 Kenyan shillings buying power dips to 850 Kenyan shillings in a year. So talking about fuel that lasted a week, now lasts 4 days. 100,000 Kenyan shillings earner has 10,380 less. And gives you a whole graph and a comparison between last year, 2022, the take home, about 76,041. And they have a shopping cart there of quite a number of household commodities, and it is quite full. But in 2023, the real take-home is about 65,661, giving a whole comparison of someone who earns 100,000 Kenyan shillings salary, basically, breaking it down between last year and this particular year, even showing you how the shopping cart for this year is actually minimal. Talking about 15% is a share of take-home a Kenyan worker has lost. Tough times, these ones. Other stories on this front page, on the left strip there. NSE retail investors dump shares for T-bills. What is matters NSEs. And on the right side, that ticker there. In Matters Economy on page 4, you will read that Pakistan top Kenya exports market outside EAC. In Matters Companies, ABSA CEO shakes up top brass 6 months into appointment. And in Matters Markets, City Hall now bans hawking in CBD streets. And well, because this really affects quite a number of Kenyans living around Nairobi, the hawkers there. Nairobi County has banned hawking on city streets and along the roads amid questions on how it will implement the directive aimed at restoring order in East Africa's economic hub. Effective today, we'll be seeing how that will be effective. And maybe we do expect a whole push and pull between the police, who might, and even city council, as commonly known, Kanjo, and even the hawkers. It might be a push and pull today.
Yes, the governor ordered this yesterday, so the crackdown begins today. Let's wait and see what happens.
Oh, yes.
With speculations, they're already saying it's because of that visit.
By the king.
By the king.
Doesn't need to see
how rowdy your town can
his
be.
organization
Yes.
in his former colony. Let's cross the borders now and see what is headlining in our neighboring countries. We start off with Uganda. And in Kampala, we have a look at the Daily Monitor. Today, the big headline, marks for sale at universities. Investigation. A new vice has been exposed with some students at Kiambogo and Makerere universities, this time claiming they bribed their way to better grades. Information detailing how shady academic staff connived with dodgy students to switch poor marks in exchange for cash was collected by Daily Monitor during a 3-month undercover investigation. And this has been covered extensively on pages 4 and 5 of this newspaper. Other highlights on the front page of the Daily Monitor: will work with Uganda to fight terrorism, U.S. envoy says. And on the top strip, school head teachers held over UNEB exams. Matters Education making the front page of the dailies in Uganda. Marks for sale and school head teachers being held over UNEB exams. And that is what is big news in Kampala, Uganda this Thursday morning.
Let's have a look at what is headlining in Tanzania on the Citizen this morning. Tanzania turns to research to expand mining. And the government yesterday reaffirmed its commitment to expanding the mining sector through thorough research as part of a wider effort to further unlock Tanzania's mining potential. And still on the Citizen, government to merge 19 state-owned farms into 7. And away from that, Dar Lusaka sign natural gas deals. And also still on the Citizen, a national recognition, government plans a literary reward to encourage writing. That is what we have on the Citizen this morning.
Katika gazeti la Mwananchi, mashirika 19 kufumuliwa, mchakato ya kuyavunja ya baki 7 waiva. Mchechu athibitisha kukamilisha mazungumzo, vigogo wake matumbo. Na kuna semi pale ya Nehemia Mchechu, kwa sasa hatua za ndani ya serikali zinaendelea kukamilika au kukamilisha hilo, na kabla ya mwisho wa mwaka huu wa fedha mashirika hayo yatatangazwa. Vidokezo vingine katika gazeti hili: Samia kupunguza masharti ya visa kwa Wazambia. Kwingineko, sintofahamu walipo hawa wanafunzi. Pale kando mengi katika ukurasa wa 5. Pale Dar es Salaam wanafunzi 148,229 waliochaguliwa kujiunga kidato cha kwanza mwaka wa 2022 si miongoni mwa watahiniwa wa mitihani ya upimaji wa kidato cha pili mwaka huu inayoanza wiki ijayo. Pale juu, niliwapa mgao wa mali ndugu wa Msuya Miriam. Hayo tu ni baadhi ya vidokezo katika gazeti la Mwananchi. Tukirejea hapa Kenya, katika masuala ya caricature, on page 17 of the Daily Nation and also on page 14 of the Standard. I can start with the page 17 of the Daily Nation this morning. And there's a gentleman there dipping his head into one of the buckets. We'd assume this man is from Kere, saying we haven't met our collection target. And this really has to do with yesterday's announcement by the taxman, saying that they have a revenue shortfall of about 80 billion shillings, even despite an 8.4% year-on-year growth in the first financial quarter.
The irony of it, after milking the cow dry, you
Yes.
still haven't met your target.
Yes.
And it leaves questions on whether or not increasing taxes has a direct effect of generating more revenue.
Yeah.
So, well, it's an interesting cartoon there on the Daily Nation today by Ndula. I think his name is Victor Ndula, the cartoonist on the Daily Nation. Let's take a look at what's the cartoon on the Standard today. And someone running away with fire on their backside.
This one makes it.
A handbag branded Meru with a gentleman and a guitar sticking out of it. And he's saying, due to lack of funding, the Meru County Fire Department is not operational at the moment. Leave a message after the beep. Wow, interesting. Kuna moto kule Meru.
Wow.
And that
Once
is a
again.
cartoon on the Standard today.
Oh yes, I
This
mean
rate, it's quite a task being a Marian, because every time all the trolls and banters are on you. Let's have a look at the cartoon on the People Daily this morning. And Stano there, there's a caricature of a man who looks like the current president, carrying campaign promises, a load, some of them on his back. Then there's a kiddo here asking, forget about the free laptops, where are the free diapers? That is some of the promises that were made during the campaign period. And of course, most of them you've seen about tons of all those things that were said. That's what Stano decided to focus on today.
Okay, we do have a question today.
Oh, yes.
What are we asking?
Basically, it matters the whole Nairobi hawking. And just to get it...
do you support the move by Nairobi Governor Sakaja to ban hawking in the Central Business District?
Well, that's a question today. Do you support the move by the Nairobi governor to ban hawking from the Central Business District? You can share your views on that on our social media pages on X, TV47 News, or Twitter, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. And on State of the Nation, which will be coming your way after the break, Stella Agara, governance expert, Masaki Samuel, Director Youth Affairs, UDA Party, and MCA Kileleshwa Bwana Alai will be in studio. Do stand by for that. Taking a short break, you're watching Morning Cafe. With me, Fred Ndimuli. We want to get down to discussing the headlines this morning, and we're privileged to have in studio Robert Talai, the MCA Kileleshwa ward here in Nairobi. Karibu sana, it's good to have you in studio. Now that you're here, and yes, the other panelists are not here, but big news in Nairobi today, that ban on hawking. Governor Sakaja has banned hawking on sidewalks in town, and the crackdown by Kanjo Askaris begins today. And I just want to pick your mind on this. What is your feeling about this?
Yeah, thank you, Fred, for having me here after a very long, I don't know, recess or not appearing in the show. But I think that I saw the decision and I question it, because it's good, but it also can be just for the headlines. I wish the governor would actually carry out to ensure that the traders are protected, are given a space to sell in, but also the people who are trying to ply their other trades in the city of Nairobi are allowed to do their businesses without any much hindrances. I saw that thing, but I don't know if they are going to implement it. I'm waiting to see this morning in Nairobi. I want to see it implemented. You know, you cannot ban hawking. Hawking is everywhere. What you can do is that you can control it. You can say that we allow this number of people, this number of traders at these certain periods of time in these areas. But you cannot say that you're not going to allow hawkers. I've seen in cities in Europe, in America, in Asia, very developed cities where they have small traders. You know, they might not call them hawkers because they're not moving here and there like ours. But they are small traders and they're selling their wares. They're selling newspapers. They're selling, you know, candies. They're selling flowers. You know, they're allowed certain areas and certain times to operate, to do their businesses. But they're well controlled and enforcement is very strict. But here you have a situation where sometimes the enforcement is on who is hauling, who is post palms. And it is very dangerous now even to walk in the city of Nairobi. You see the kind of, you know, situations now that we even have magas are moving into areas where they have already been, you know, cleared from, you know, Moi Avenue. Now you have places like Moi Avenue becoming very unsafe, Kenyatta Avenue, and I think that it should not be that way. I wish that our enforcement teams would be very more proactive in dealing with this. But I saw the meeting with the governor yesterday. I think it's going to bear some fruit, but I think that they should pull up their socks.
This debate about whether or not hawkers should be allowed in the city, areas that have been designated for this kind of trade, has been there for many years.
Yes.
And I remember a point in time when that market in Ngara was designated purely for the hawkers.
Yes.
You're now talking about hawkers being allowed to occupy some spaces within the city center at certain periods. And I'm thinking probably it's closing off some streets to traffic to allow hawkers to trade. The same way that Masai Market probably was.
Yes.
Is it a conversation that is on? And because probably that would be the solution instead of just sending Kanjo to crack down on anyone hawking on the streets.
Yeah, I think people can rotate in using the various parts of Nairobi in turns, and this is not only with the hawkers, but even other vice economy sectors. You know, the people want to have night parties, can be given sections of Nairobi, which are you know, business areas during the day and doing the normal businesses. You know, they're allowed to work at night, because if you go to Nairobi nowadays after 9-10, it's dead. Why is it dead? Because all the vice economies were pushed away by Corona one, but also by the mosques, which are buying.
Talk about vice economies.
The clubs. The clubs are not available. They are not as common in the CBD as they were before. And even the workers now, they're not making as much money as they used to make when the economy of the clubs, you know, the night parties. You remember when Nakuma downtown was working? You people would go shopping even in the middle of the night, and it would be very nice. You know, you'd love the view of the city at night. You can easily walk into almost all the areas without any much hindrances. But I think that we can use the city in turns. So there's something you're doing now which cannot work with what I am doing, but I can do it well at night where nobody else is using that part of the street. So I think that the only thing which is missing is strict enforcement. Okay. If we say it's from 6 to 6, can it be from 6 to 6? So that some people don't go beyond. If people, you start putting your things by 6, you start putting your things, but then by 5 a.m., you have cleared the street to allow others to get into the city and park and, go to their offices and do other things. I think the city can make much more money if we ensure that we also capitalize on the night economy.
Okay. And a very interesting discussion is coming up. Just recently, this week, the Chief Justice sent some bills to Parliament seeking to amend the Penal Code.
Yes.
And one of those suggestions or proposals was to decriminalize prostitution. It has been a big debate in Nairobi, and I know you've been engaged in some exercise, especially around areas of Kilimani and Kileleshwa, with regard to some of these activities. I can't determine the extent of the activities myself, but what kind of effect do you think such a proposal, if approved, would have on the city?
I think it's a very nice proposal. Kenyans are very conservative when it comes to sexual matters, but they have more sex than anybody else, I guess. We are very conservative, compared to our neighbors. Tanzanians, they start teaching kids at a very young age, even young boys and girls, sexual matters. Uganda, the same. And that's why I think if you check on this, you see how how outspoken they are on such matters, unlike us. But being conservative, even getting a sexual shop in Nairobi, if you want to buy tools to deal with matter sex, is very hard to get. This is an economy of itself. You know about Amsterdam, the red light district, where you can buy anything and whatever you want, the tool you want to ply your trade. I believe that sexual, what you call the commercial sexual workers should be protected, and they should be given sections of the street to use. I don't know why Koinange became a very, it became synonymous with the trade, but at some point I think we removed them, and now they are all over. If you go to the city by 8 p.m., you find them on May Avenue, you find them on Arambe Avenue, they are on Koinange Street, they are on, they moved to the CB, but now they're even getting to the estates. Because we are pushing them away. We used to rough them up, arrest them. I believe what the Chief Justice is saying is very interesting. We should listen to it. In this day and age where we are even talking about fluidity in gender, I don't know what it is, but we are talking about such conversations, we are having them openly. We are having conversations about LGBTQ. I don't see the reason why the priority should not be on commercial sex workers. And
I remember a few weeks back you had a problem, I think, in Kilimani and Kileleshwa, and you talked about mushrooming of this kind of business, especially within residential estates. Do you think that probably, if at all this is approved, it could have a negative effect?
No, I believe everything. These economies are very nice. They bring in a lot of money. The problem is that if you don't control them, then they come right in your doorstep. They are bringing them to the estates. Why? Because we are pushing them out of the CBD, out of the areas where they should be operating from, out of areas of commercial interest like Westlands, Baricho Road, places where we knew they had prominence, but now they have been pushed from those areas because of constant harassment. We have not created for them areas. So what do they do now? They hire residential neighborhoods. They take up very high portion neighborhoods, and they still ply their trades. Now they have call-in clients. You see, I think that we can create areas where we just know that if you are going to this area, it is an area of vice economy. It is an area of people, partying, people having all these things. Please don't disturb them. If you are not of that kind, that's not your kind of fun, please just leave them alone. Because what we are closing, now you have them in Kilimani and Kileleshwa masked as spas and saloons and barber shops. it is not working well. I even had a situation yesterday where some enforcement officers were trying to raid a barber shop, a salon in Kileleshwa, and they find it's a brothel. And right in the middle of a gated community. You know, and because parents have started worrying, the number of clients they're seeing there, they didn't look like people are going for, you know, to the saloon. And it's in a residential, very high-end residential area in Kileleshwa. And so they started complaining, and when the raid was done, it was found to be a brothel.
But it's a very dicey discussion to have, given that the kind of beliefs that Kenyans have.
Yeah.
Is this debate or discussion alive at the county assembly level? Are we having this discussion to try and organize, even without waiting for the proposals by the CJ, to try and organize this business?
Yeah, there's a motion to that effect. I think because of our conservativeness, it's still a very challenging thing to introduce to our people. But we are trying to convince as many of us as possible to ensure that, you know, we have a very robust debate on this thing, and we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because these people will exist whether we like it or not. So, but how do we create safe spaces? How do we ensure that they protect themselves? How do we ensure that we reduce the HIV rates, infection rates, with such a trade also existing within us? Because there have been, even the National AIDS Council previously, I don't know how it's called now, it's a very complex name for the organization. It was, the commercial sex workers were very instrumental in the control of the spread of HIV. You remember the story of the Majengo commercial sex workers. They were very instrumental. But now, if you try and make them your enemies, what is going to happen? You've seen the infection rates now increasing, because with social media, it's even easier now to get the services of them. It is very easy to get their contacts. It's very easy to invite them into Airbnbs. You ask yourself, why is it that if you go to the CBD, all these Airbnbs have a very, you know, very active trade during the day? You know, people are doing these things. So, but how do you ensure that you protect each one of them? How do you ensure that, you know, you promote safety during that? How do you ensure also you tap into the economy? You need to bring them. You need to bring them into onto the table and have a conversation with them.
Because there's also the issue of offending religious beliefs. We are a highly religious state. This discussion would definitely offend a good portion of the population.
Yeah.
How do we go about having this discussion and maintain sanity?
I don't know how religious we are. I know that we are church going, and I don't know how. Anyway, so the religious beliefs, you know, with religion we can even have, and these things happen in church more than anywhere else. With the religion, we can still have this conversation, and you know, even our spiritual fathers can help us guide this debate very well. I believe that even with the religiousness, we can still, you know, have a very open debate about these things and ensure that we have a win-win for everyone, and we protect this segment of population. If we don't, then we are going to perish.
Okay.
I've seen the kind of, from the statistics released, I think recently in April or May, from the AIDS control, I think that the infection rates are growing. But if we don't have this debate, I think we are going to lose the war.
Okay. Away from that, there are other interesting headlines, and I want to draw attention to a story on the front page of the Daily Nation. The bottom strip, a double loss for woman caught up in Mavoko and Njiru land cases. I bring this up because I've seen your tweet on what is happening in Njiru. Yes, when it happened in Mavoko, it was some distance away. It has moved closer, especially with that Kirima land in Njiru. And this woman lost pieces of land in Mavoko, and now she stands to lose her home in Njiru. You on social media have come out and asked whoever is affected to go ahead and discuss, negotiate with the Kirima family instead of pursuing other means. Why is that? Because I've seen a number of politicians, 2 members of the National Assembly from Nairobi, actually questioning and coming out to chest thump and say that no building will be demolished on that piece of land. And you seem to disagree with that.
Yeah, you know, I love the rule of law, and I think that when we live in a society where we value the court judgments, I think that everything would be settled well. Because the moment we start disregarding and encouraging people now to disobey court orders, what are we doing to this society? What if we are leaders with a lot of influence, we go and stand, you know, in front of cameras and tell people that, you know, please, that's just one of the useless pronouncements made in some room somewhere. Please ignore it and continue staying there and ensure that, what will, because these are the people who are protecting us from insanity. If we disregard law enforcers and, you know, the judiciary, I don't think that we are going to get anywhere in an orderly manner. So the only good thing is that I don't know the details of this case, but if a court of law ruled that the Kirima owns it, please go and negotiate with the Kirimas. Don't listen to anybody, because, you know, I saw there's a discussion, I saw there's a public rally which was being held yesterday with the victims or the affected and with the politicians, but also with the only people who are prominently there were the people who sold them the land. The people who sold them the land are these people who went to court. But the court ruled, after very long, you know, deliberations, they ruled that this land belongs to the Kirimas. Everybody else who has been passing there, Njiru, Choka area, knows that this land belongs to the Kirimas, even before the court ruled. So how do you come today and say that we are going to disregard that, we are going to ensure that nobody is removed there? With what powers? With what, you know, if the police value order, please, you know, IG, go and enforce their orders. This is where people are going to start respect. Because, you know, you see the case of this lady at on the front page of the Nation, first page, somebody who is used to shortcuts. You are used to shortcuts, Ulitoka Mavoko, you have now gone to Choka. You'll find Ako Kamulu, Ako somewhere, you know, there's everywhere. Akiona shortcut. I always tell people an interesting story of somebody who was very powerful in one regime, an architect, and who was prominent businesses, you know, prominent businesses built on land meant for road reserves. Along Mombasa Road, then along Wayakiwe. Very prominent business, and was a very powerful architect during one of the previous regimes. And these people, this is somebody who never, despite being a billionaire, he never loved the idea of buying for himself. Alikuwa anapenda shortcuts. You know, go to this land ministry, tell this land guy to sell me this property, to give me a location for this, and now I get it for free. Land worth billions and meant for public infrastructure. You know, they take up for free. When you are used to shortcuts in the city, it is becoming messy. In Kilelesha, you see what is happening today, and Kilimani. Today, we are having a demonstration at 9 a.m. on Baazi Avenue because of people who are now, you know, turning the estate into a vertical slum. It's crazy, you know. You are building in 1 acre, you're building 500 units of housing without improving on the roads, without improving on the water infrastructure, without improving on the sewer system, without having enough schools. And in this city, the city is developing, but every public amenity is remaining behind in the 1960s, 1970s stage. No school is going up. You see, if you go to Olympic, you find 7,000, 5,000 students. If you go to all these schools in Gatina, Kawangware, Dandora, you know, the classrooms are full. A teacher standing in front of the classroom cannot walk up to the back because the tables are squeezed. The children have to climb on top of desks and tables to ensure that they come to the front. I think that, you know, we can develop Nairobi, but we can also develop it in an orderly manner. The way we are doing is not right. And also the schools, you know, they have to go up. We have to ensure that the schools, the classrooms are built in such a way that we build 3, 2, 3, 4 floors up. What we are having now is not good for the survival of the city. And on this piece of land, I wish these people would just look for the Kirima family. They sit down, they have a win-win. There are people who have had, I think, more than 5, 6 rulings. You remember the Chandaria land in South B, in Maradaima. These people have had rulings. Mpaka the court have now declared them people who are misusing the court process. Because they have this ruling against them, they go against them, They are just now in court to ensure that they stalled any chance of them being evicted.
Isn't that indicative of the kind of mess that's present today in issues to do with land ownership in Nairobi? That it is so bad that some have described it as owning land in Nairobi as one of 1,000 ways to die. Is it something that can really be sorted out? Or is the mess so deep that we just have to react to it when we're in a crisis like this one?
I think it's not only in Nairobi, I think it's the whole country. We need to ensure that we have food security in this country. The subdivision of land in this city, in this country, is not giving us any hopes of having food security. We have this menace of 50 by 100. It is a serious menace, and now it's going to Kisumu. It's now going, you know, with this debate of affordable housing. This thing is going into the counties, and it's going to create a huge mess. The other thing it is creating is that it's destroying our cities. Every new estate started, every new residential area is turning into a slum, instantly. You have, you know, Rongai, Kitengela, Mlolongo. These are new residential areas. They are not complete slums, but the problem is that they are concrete slums. If you had enough money and you wanted to rebuild Nairobi, you would go to Kibera today with the Mabatis and clear it with probably 3, 4, 5, you know, bulldozers and flatten the estate and rebuild. Where would you take the concrete from Umoja, Donholm, Buruburu, Roysambu, Zimmerman, Rongai, Kitengela, Mlolongo? We are turning this.
It's just one big slum.
Yes, you see the kind of mess. People are walking, people are climbing up to 7, 8, 9 floors in pipeline. In houses, people are living in houses which are permanently damp.
But you said the same about Kileleshwa and
Yes.
vertical slums.
Yes.
Because we've seen the mushrooming of a number of very high-rise buildings
Yes.
in very small spaces, as you described them, without necessarily similar adjustment to the sewerage, water system, and even the school or social amenities as well.
Yes.
Is it that the city lacks a proper land use system describing what kind of property or what kind of structure can be put up in certain areas?
You know, the system is very much available, and the policy is there. The only thing is that now the policy allowing the development, very high-rise buildings, is not there. You know, when Governor Kidero was in office, in 2016, they passed a very strong policy sponsored by JICA, which limited development in areas like Kilimani and Kileleshwa to ground plus 3. 4 floors, ground plus 3. But now, over that, for every extra floor, you find greedy officers at the Nairobi City County getting as much as 3 million per floor. So if they're building 22 floors, 3 million times 18. So 3 million times 18, you will find that somebody is getting 4 million. If you come before such a person, you see, they can get that money in cash, or they get them in form of units in that housing complex. You see, this is going to create, it's greed. It's basically greed driving. And now we have come up with some crazy policy that we want to regularize this menace. We are saying that whatever, because we are so much desperate for rates, we need to regularize all this mess. I don't think that we need to regularize the mess.
Okay.
And the moment, you know, I wish that even when they're creating all this mess, they're creating these vertical slums, they develop Nairobi. These developments are happening in Nairobi without any regard for public amenities, without any regard for police stations. The police officers, a good number of them, live in these Mabati cubicles, in police lines. Their chambers are grabbed. We have not been giving them, you know, space to live in and enforce laws well in this city.
Okay.
Yeah? But they are part of us. We expect them to behave like people are living in Nairobi. If you go to a police officer in Kileleshwa, he's not living the kind of lifestyle where people around that area are living. Okay. You know, he doesn't have the confidence because, you know, he's put in a situation where the condition of living is not good. They're living 3, 4, 5 of them in a single unit housing. They cannot properly start families. They are not living a normal life because the easiest probably relationship they can start is from a bar or a social place somewhere where they can only have a very short duration relationship because of the living situation cannot allow them to start a very normal life. Yeah.
It is an interesting discussion we're having today with a focus on the counties. After the break, we'll be looking at what's happening in Meru County, where the governor was impeached yesterday by the county assembly. Her fate now lies with the Senate, and we'll have to wait and see how that goes. You're watching Morning Cafe. Let's take a short break. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Ndemuli. We are still in studio with the Honorable Robert Alai, MCA Kileleshwa Ward, and now joining the panel, Stella Agara, governance expert. Good morning, karibu sana to TV 47.
Good morning.
You missed, but Bwana Alai did us justice. We now want to focus on the big story of the front page of the Standard today, the flying president. And we're talking about President William Ruto, who's described here as having a penchant for flying. So great is his love for travel that it appears he cannot pass up any opportunity. So far, he has been abroad 38 times. Even as back at home, little seems to be moving. from the university funding crisis to the high cost of living quandary. The story is extensively covered on page 2. And when you see this kind of coverage on the front page of the Standard, usually there's more stories and highlights on the bottom strip. They've taken quite a huge space, at least half the page, to give us this global map and the travel routes that the president has used. And he's been to some countries like Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, and the US at least 3 times. Burundi, France, United Kingdom twice each, and so many other different countries once. And it reminds me that on was it Tuesday this week, he dashed to Saudi Arabia for lunch with the king and came back home. And definitely for a president to fly out, there must be a justification for it. The only issue is, even in as far as perception is concerned, Kenyans are suffering. The cost of living is high. Fuel prices are high. Money meant for schools, capitation is yet to be disbursed. University funding, even the most poor, the poorest university students are now being told that they will have to pay for their own school fees. And should we be concerned, Stella, with this kind of spending by the executive?
I think thank you very much, first of all, for having me. I think we should be very concerned about this kind of spending, especially because this is happening around the same time as the economy is truly struggling. Kenyans are trying to figure out some of the most basic needs that they have, and yet we have a president who's moving around. And normally there's nothing wrong with a president traveling, but that kind of travel is supposed to translate into something valuable for the nation. I mean, do you really have to go and have lunch in Saudi Arabia, or you can do a phone call or a different kind of meeting to make that happen? I think the choices to go to all these countries may not necessarily all have been very wise decisions, especially because when a president is traveling, it's not like when Stella is traveling. Stella can get on the plane alone and get to wherever. A president has to be accompanied by people, and it costs the taxpayers a lot of money. So in terms of austerity, one of the areas that they should have targeted before even thinking of taxing anybody is reducing the amount of travel. And I think it was even done in the previous government by His Excellency, our former President Uhuru Kenyatta, where at some point he had actually indicated that you could only travel with clearance. And I think this was a directive from the Ministry of Interior. And it's something that should be done urgently, because not all these trips are actually benefiting the country, especially in terms of finances. And we would need to make sure that then we are prioritizing those trips in order of what strategic interests there are and what value they're adding to our economy at this point.
There was some communication by the head of public service, Felix Koskei, with regard to this kind of travel and the number of people who can accompany or should accompany the president whenever he travels abroad. But controlling the number of people around the president is not the easiest thing. He is the head of state. Yeah. He is the commander-in-chief, and his comfort comes first. But issues to do with austerity. Yeah. Because in the situation we are in, even in as far as perception is concerned, people would expect some level of what would I call it, slowing down by the executive in how they spend money, in how they carry out their duties. Are we seeing any of that at any level?
I don't think that we're seeing. You have seen from international events that it's not only about travel, but even showing off. Even if you are a billionaire president, there are things you don't do when you're in public office. You don't show extreme wealth. You don't wear wristwatches worth 7 million shillings. You don't ride in a vehicle which is worth a certain amount of money. It is not because you can't afford it. It's because of the perception you're creating. And you also, when some of these things the president creates, today you see, I can tell you for a fact, you see how many MCAs are struggling to buy a Lexus 570 just because the president is driving in such a vehicle. You see, the vehicle cannot go for less than 14 million. You see? And somebody wants to drive such a car in the middle of this poverty, in the urban areas and also in the rural areas. The president needs to control the appetite for travel, because I don't believe that these trips also bring so much amount of money or development to this country. He could have not gotten if he was here, or he called the president, or he called an ambassador, in State House, and the other discussion, he invited a delegation, 1 or 2, 3 people from the ministry, You see, I don't think that it's wise for the president to travel. And you know, every time the president moves, you're told that it is not less than 30 people who moves with him. So when the president goes to a foreign country, you know, especially now going to Saudi Arabia, lunch and back, China, 3 days, you know, for him to go there, it is not the team he's traveling with. It is the advanced team,
Yes.
which is making sure that the embassy there is stopping the businesses they are doing every day, and now is focusing on the delegation of the president. It is not an easy work. You have seen, for us, if you try to go to a foreign country, and sometimes they don't give the MCAs as much attention as they give the MPs. When you travel with the MPs, I remember a situation where we were in a foreign country with the MPs, and the MPs are, you know, the whole embassy is almost taking care of the MPs. And I say, why is this? And because they fear if the MPs start oversighting them because they didn't treat them so well when they were in the country where they are working from. I think that, Fred, we can do better. I'm seeing from the same report, 2013, 2014, 9.3 billion was being used on foreign travel.
Yes. In comparison, Uhuru Kenyatta was not any better. He also traveled quite a bit.
Yeah, they say that in the same period, Uhuru Kenyatta also went out of the country 12 times, 135 days, 133 days. But the President Ruto is spending more time out of Africa.
Okay.
You see? He's spending more time out of Africa, and it is more expensive to travel away from the continent. I believe that he can do better. These trips, some of them can be handled by the people in the foreign missions out of this country, and they can do much better job negotiating with these people.
One of the justifications given for his many travels, and I'm quoting directly from page 2 of the Standard, and this is Nelson Koech, the National Assembly Defense Chair, saying the head of state has held several meetings abroad, and that has unlocked a lot of investment into the country. If at all it is beneficial to the country, then it has to be done at some point.
Not necessarily. I mean, the former president of Tanzania, the late Magufuli, never practically left his country, and majority of the times he would either send his ambassadors or cabinet secretaries if someone really had to go. And he would only send a cabinet secretary if the person who is the envoy in the country where he wants to go to is not able to handle the business that is not expected. Number one, he did not stop the Republic of Tanzania from existing, but number two, and most important, he was able to consolidate his economy from home. So it's not something that they have to do every day. Presidents and heads of states have mechanisms to communicate with each other. They're able to organize bilateral meetings that they could do without necessarily having to travel. They only travel when there is a public event that they need to carry out, whether it's a joint signing or that kind of thing. That is the only time that it will justify movement. Under such an economy, under such struggles that Kenyans are going through, ideally, the president should not be going through all these kinds of travel, even if there are strategic things that need to be discussed. He could travel to a few places, especially when it has a huge political connotation to either our foreign stance or that kind of thing. The other thing that we need to think about in Limuli is the fact that whenever a president is traveling, there are people who have been looking to see him in the country and they don't get access to him. And so what they do is that they fly out to go to the destination he's going.
It's easier to meet the president
It's easier to meet him outside than inside the country. So apart from the 30, 50 people who will go with him, there are other people who are taking resources from the economy and going to spend them in a foreign economy in order to be able to meet the president. So when you put all those resources together, the economy is losing quite a lot when he's outside the country than when he's in the country. Okay. And I think it's extremely important that then these trips are prioritized and only done if necessary, and the president focuses on consolidating the economy.
Could we be paying a political cost? There's some who argue that for a president who in his initial stages is facing questions about his legitimacy from the opposition and other parties, Azimio, that he found solace in creating a larger-than-life image out there as a Pan-Africanist and probably a campaigner on matters climate change, and he's doing very well. Do you think it is out of that political necessity for the president that he's making so many trips abroad?
I don't believe that there's anything larger than life or any meaningful brand he has created outside there, because it is conflicting with what he's doing. You cannot talk about Pan-Africanism and then go to the stages, the global stages, and try to give the positions of the Western countries. You know, some of them, it's very insulting, even when it's talking about climate change. But in this city, you allow the vertical slums, which are choking life out of this, you know, the very city. You see the mess is trying to control by firing a few people at the Kenya Forestry Service. He gave an order, he allowed logging. You see, he created this mess. I don't believe that he can, you know, you should, when President Uhuru came to power with Deputy President Ruto, they were battling Hague cases. They had to travel to some of these countries to solve very personal issues. They had to do a lot of travels. I don't see, and you can see the performance in the first 5 years of President Uhuru and the second 5 years. The second 5 years, he almost never went out of the country, but he achieved a lot. Almost everything you talk of Uhuru now was done from 2017 to 2022. But in between 2013 and 2017, almost nothing. He achieved nothing, you know, despite going out of the country very many times. It was about his personal issues and, you know, dealing with the Hague cases and trying to see how they can, you know, whip a good number of the countries to support them on their... I don't know what he's trying to achieve with this, because if you're going to go to China to meet Huawei team, why don't you just invite the Huawei team to the country? You know, why don't you just invite them and have a discussion with them? The UN General Assembly, you don't have to go there. Maybe he went for the first time, he was president, maybe it's a very good thing to go and address the General Assembly, but next time, please, can you just send the foreign delegations? And because every time I saw the president want to go out, then a good number of MPs want to go with him. Then a good number of MCAs want to go with him. Then you can imagine the number of state officers who want to go with the president of the General Assembly. Then it becomes a mess, because some of these entities he cannot control. Like the governors were reacting, were telling him that you cannot tell us on how to spend the money we budgeted for.
Okay.
You cannot tell us that we don't go for foreign trips when we budgeted for the foreign trips. So judiciary, is he going to tell the judges that you cannot, you know, the letter which was coming from Koskei is being resisted in all corners. It is just a letter remaining to be a letter, because these institutions which are supposed to be protecting them, they're also traveling. The ESCC, the DCI, you saw the DCI boss was in some place.
Could it be an excitement about the trappings of power? Because we saw earlier this year, even the president and his deputy calling out even cabinet secretaries who and they said, this is the expression they used, that some of them just change their clothes at the airport. They land in Kenya to change flights and move elsewhere. Could it just be that excitement? Because now we're seeing even instances where the president and his deputy are out of the country at the same time, which was rarely seen before.
Misplaced excitement, if you ask me. Misplaced excitement. I don't think public office is an opportunity to explore and visit every other country that you know an individual hasn't had a chance to visit in their lifetime. And most importantly, you cannot sit on a pedestal and ask your cabinet secretaries and MCAs and whoever else is in your government not to travel, and yet you are traveling liberally. I mean, you have to lead by example. But on the question you've asked about making political statements, I think one of the thoughts that has been at the back of my mind throughout is the question of what is His Excellency the President's plea. You go out there, say beautiful things that wow the audiences that you're speaking to, but when you come back home, you are definitely sipping wine when you are preaching water. And for me, even as you were saying, he's doing well on climate change. I was shifting on my seat because I'm looking at the fundamentals, and I can see that there are certain areas where already we have problems in the country concerning indigenous seed and allowing communities to continue using indigenous seed for farming. They are compelling farmers to completely stop. As a matter of fact, it's being made criminal to use indigenous seed. And instead, they're advancing seeds that will be bought by farmers. So you would be hard-pressed to explain to me that he actually means what he says on the public platforms when he comes back home and allows policies such as the ones that are being passed by his government to exist.
Well, that's a big headline on the Standard today. The flying president, and the Standard has just done us justice in pointing out exactly where the president has been over the last about 135 days. Now, let's move on to the other big story, and this one has been hitting the headlines for quite a while, and it's featured on the front page of the Daily Nation. Top strip, Governor Kawira is impeached again. The story is on page 5 of the Daily Nation. It's featured as well on the Standard. And it brings to light the kind of struggles that these devolved units have to grapple with. And as we look at what's happening in Meru, we cannot resist drawing parallels with what's happening in other county governments as well. The county government of Nairobi, there are, and I saw a few headlines about the kind of relationship the Governor Sakaja is having with his deputy. We saw in previous governments the kind of relationship that the governors have had with the respective county assemblies. Now, this is not a unique problem, whatever we are having in Meru. It simply mirrors what's happening elsewhere in the 47 counties. Problems between the governor and his deputy, the governor and the county assembly. Is it an indictment on devolution itself?
I don't think there is an indictment. I think the devolution is coming to be. It is very hard for a sitting assembly to impeach a governor. I can tell you for a fact how hard it is. Because when you are fighting a governor, remember this is the person who is signing your salary every month. This is the person who decides on which, and the law gives them a lot of power to decide on which words get. If today I criticize Governor Sakaja and refuses me development, there's no way I can take him. You see? The law is giving, and these are some of the changes we wanted on the Constitution, and also the various, the Public Finance Management Act and the various acts, because it's making the MCAs be at the mercy of a governor. But, you know, the issue of Kawira, I understood it from the word go that this lady was not meant to be a public official. Because when you are elected to be a public official and you appoint your husband to a position, it brings in challenges. You know, just that public act of even bringing your husband is now performing, playing a guitar in front of people, a multitude. You know, even that show alone is bringing some questions on what you are doing. You know,
enough
the
questions to seek her impeachment?
The accusation here is misuse of county resources, naming a road after herself, you know, or after the husband, nepotism, unethical acts, even without being in Meru County. You know, the issues we are raising here, like the president driving around in a very expensive vehicle. These are issues, you know, if I am MCA today and I travel in a vehicle which makes you ask yourself that, Kwani, how much does an MCA get paid? You see? And if the MCA is getting paid that much, is it good use of public money? You know, the other level is the MP. If the MP is living this large, even if I was rich, even if I was a rich person, there are some things when you are in a public office you don't do. You don't do. But when I saw them in Meru, she naming a road after the husband, I said, now kuna shida hapa. Kuna shida hapa.
It's the issues that are listed as reasons for her impeachment that raise a question, because we know for a fact that the genesis of this bad blood between the governor and the county assembly, and this was before the first attempt to impeach her last year, had nothing to do with some of the problems now. This is what has occurred after the relationship was already severed. It had to do with money and the allocation of funds to each county, of which the governor initially resisted. Do you think that the kind of issues raised by the MCAs in this second attempt to impeach her actually hold water? Issues like naming the road after her husband?
I think majority of the issues on paper are valid because they're leveling accusations of embezzlement. They're leveling accusations of impropriety in the way she's conducting financial processes in the county. They've leveled accusations of nepotism, of hiring relatives, and all of those are problematic and could be cited as grounds for either demonstrating that she's incompetent or she's just unwilling to serve the people of Meru County. I find it very strange. And for me, one of the things I was thinking about is maybe we need to check just more than the integrity of this individual. I could practically pass it as mental situation that one would want to front their partner that much in the public space and even attempt to give them an office, because it would obviously get you in trouble, not just in Kenya, in any jurisdiction. Now, for me, when her husband sings or performs for a public event, it's not a problem for me, especially if he's not being paid or if he's pre-qualified by a committee that she has no influence over and she recuses herself from making any decisions about it, because he's an artist like any other and therefore should be given equal opportunity to perform. Naming a road after him, on the other hand, I remember laughing yesterday and I was thinking to myself that she must be really in love to be able to allow her partner to get her into this much trouble. There are men who have never even shown up with their wives in public. And even those who have truly loved their wives to the point of wanting to show off the first lady or whoever the wife of the governor is, do not get the point of allowing them enough access to destroy them. I know there have been problems, for example, in Busia County where maybe there are excesses here and there concerning the first lady, but I don't think I've seen anything to this extent. So for me, there's a special problem that needs to be addressed concerning the governor, I don't know what to call her now, of Meru County. And most importantly, we need to start asking ourselves a number of questions. Is it just what we are seeing on the surface? Mm-hmm. And I don't want to go in the direction of beginning to defend her because she's a woman. But it's unfortunate for me that one of the few women who have made it to governor position has been under siege from the beginning of her time. Okay. And she should have understood her position from that perspective, that she's a minority, that there are few women, and therefore she needed to sit there and make sure that she does a really good job, because we are under a bigger test than is on the surface.
Is it an issue of belonging to a political party? Because as an independent candidate and an independent governor, she has not enjoyed the protection of parties. The involvement of the deputy president, majority of the MCAs in that county assembly are UDA MCAs. If at all she belonged to the UDA party, probably should have enjoyed some level of protection, don't you think?
No, I believe that, you know, when you come to the county assemblies, the counties, where you have the exemplars and the executive, the parties always disappear in the engagement between the MCAs and the governor. You see the situation with Sakaja. In fact, now even the UDA wing is complaining that we protect Sakaja so much because it's a minority government. And it's a situation where sometimes even when the UDA try to bring in a motion, which we think that is not very fair to the governor, we say no. It is not the right time. We are just 3 months into the new governor's budget. We need to give them time and to see what they are going to do in the next probably 6-7 months, and to see if they are going to perform or not perform. I don't believe that it's about the parties. I believe that the lady was just not meant to be a public official, and that position she is not taking it seriously. You've seen the performance of Governor Wanga. Despite being a woman, that lady is trying. Even Waiguru here, with the accusations about embezzlement in the NYS and so on, she went quiet at some point and said she wants to work. And
those two governors can actually turn back to their parties and say, kindly, can we whip our members in the county assembly in this direction to protect my policy? Kawira Mwangaza does not have that kind of latitude.
When you come to the counties, when you go to the counties, they tell you that the parties end outside there. Those people will tell you that, siasa tunapiga nje. We always, even when we were demonstrating, when you go to the assemblies or the county and you are requesting for funds or for support, those people don't ask you that, hey, lakini unakwanga ya chama gani? They don't care. You ni mheshimiwa. You serve our people. Please, can we serve you? That is what is important to them. It doesn't play much into the corridors of the county, offices and even the assemblies. I believe that this woman was just not very well appraised of what she was getting herself into. If she loves the man so much, please let her go love the man. But this office, especially of public service, especially of the management, you don't need to show the kind of actions which you are showing, loving so much, somebody so much. This is looking like a colonial regime somewhere.
Love is a good thing.
Love is a good thing. I wish somebody loved me so much, like the person who loves Kawiri as a husband. I wish that...
The conduct of MCAs and has been very consistent from even the initial county governments that we've had. And we saw the kind of trouble that the former governor of Makueni, Kivutha Kibwana, had with the MCAs. And he had to do a lot with funding at the county level, at the ward level. That debate has consistently been alive up till today. And listening to a lot of members of the county assemblies from other counties that have enjoyed relative calm, you realize that that calm is directly linked to the fact that those governors have actually given in to some sort of ward funding, ward level funding for the MCAs. And it is the same problem that was the genesis for these issues that Kawira Mwangaza is facing. Right now we may talk about other things like naming of roads after the husband and guitars, but the initial problem was the debate on whether or not she can allocate money to the ward level. Don't you think missing the point when we focus on the list of agenda that the allegations leveled against the governor right now?
From a political perspective, it's extremely important that all who are watching learn what it means to select the right team, even as you're going into a campaign for a county. You cannot just focus on you being a governor and choose anybody to be your deputy because you're assuming that you're going to cooperate just by virtue that you chose them to be your running mate. They could turn against you once you're in office. You need to know who is vying to be an MCA and how you're going to be able to collaborate with them and what their interests really are before they come into office. From a governance perspective, however, we should be extremely worried. And you're right, Ndimuli, that the names and the guitars may be sideshows. We actually need to think through whether the interests of funding boards also align with the interests of funding the priorities of the county. We engage in very extensive processes to develop county integrated development plans, and then there are constantly annual development plans that are developed, and many other plans that are set up. Are these interests of funding the wards and funding the interests of the MCAs aligning with the interests of the people? And I think that's where the real question is. If they don't, then we have a bigger problem to address than the one that we are seeing. Is there a possibility that people may just not like the person who became their governor and therefore decide to make their life miserable throughout? It has been possible. It has been seen to happen in some spaces. And of course, making the process difficult, as Alai has described, has really helped to ensure that then mischief is limited. But we have to be very careful about that as well. If a candidate is popular and has been elected by the people and is desired by the people, however much other people may have issues with the candidate, they should be able to work with the person by virtue of the fact that the people chose this human to lead them. The last thing I'll say on this matter has got to do with the negotiation capacity, inclusiveness at the top in our country. We have a habit of excluding those who are the minority or those who did not, make it. But when you get closer to the people, people prefer to see a level of fairness and inclusivity, that even if they did not vote for you, they want to see you working for them. Unfortunately, the egos that have manifested in the national politics are finding their way onto the ground, and Kenyans generally are not appreciating it. And I think this is what you can even hear the MCAs in Meru saying, that the troubled governor was being disrespectful to some of them. Disrespect may not necessarily be that she insulted anybody, but that she did not value what they thought was of interest to them. So I think as generally governors are supposed to be at a place where they're able to exercise a lot of negotiation, give and takes here and there, but it should not be the kind of give and take that then compromises or sacrifices the interests of Kenyans at the table of the interests of MCAs.
When I like this debate about the World Development Fund is alive, and it is causing problems. It is not provided for in the Constitution, similar to what we're seeing with the NGCDF, hence the conversation now to actually entrench it in the Constitution. Isn't that the conversation we should be having? That if at all the role of the MCA should be broadened to include development, overseeing development at the world level, then probably change our laws instead of forcing governors to dish out money to MCAs.
No, you know, I think Kenyans are missing the discussion. The discussion here is not about giving the MCAs money. But today, you built, you know, this country, with the Constitution 2010, we brought in 95 governments. So 95 governments, one central governor, national government, and 47 counties. These 47 counties have the the assemblies, county assemblies, and the county executives, led by the governor, county assemblies led by the speakers. The speaker's role and the county assembly's role is to oversight, to represent, to make the budgets, and to legislate. You see, these roles, some of them cannot be performed because some functions were left with the governor. If today I'm going to interrogate the governor at the public accounts, like I'm a member of the Public Accounts Committee in Nairobi, a lot of money has been stolen there probably the last financial year, and I'm going to interrogate the sitting governor on what they are doing, what measures they are doing, and the governor feels that I'm tough on him, he's going to ensure that he sabotages me so that I don't have much influence. What is he going to do? First, with the road development from your ward, the people in your ward start revolting against you. He's going to ensure that your salary or you don't get other benefits. You know, all the benefits which you're supposed to get from the county assemblies comes from the CEC finance. The CEC finance is the appointee of the governor. You see? So what we are saying is, from the allocation you're giving the governor, please give a percentage. Say that if you have 85 wards in Nairobi, each ward will get this amount of money. It is not going to the MCA, it is the ward. Control it from the executive, but it is in the law. This money, the MCAs are not touching, they don't have the powers.
Yeah, the argument by MCAs has been that people require and they ask a lot from you even, and they always say if you walk from your door to the bus stop, you'll encounter 2, 3, 4, 5 people who ask for something from you.
No, that is not the reason why they want it, because you know this is something which I brought to when we brought to the 2,200 MCAs in Nairobi from all parts of the country. The discussion was we devolved 14 functions. These 14 functions, you know, and also, you know, you need to review. You need to separate the accounts of the executive and the assembly. Otherwise, we cannot oversight these people.
But when the governors use it also as a carrot to entice the MCAs, as you said, you need to oversight the governor, that he knows if at all, to avoid trouble when being questioned by the MCAs, then he can hand a carrot through World Development Fund to the MCAs, and then he's free to do what he wants.
That's why we say, let it not be a carrot. Let it be something in the law. Whether he gives me or he doesn't give me, it is in the law. So we will question him when he doesn't give us that it is in the law. Then also separate the county assembly. You know what the governors do now? They ensure if the county assemblies become so strict, they ensure the county assembly is not getting the money. So you cannot function. There was a time in Nairobi County, you didn't even have drinking water. You're going for committee sittings. Like the biggest chunk of work that you're doing there is having these many committee sittings to oversight, to try to engage the executive members, and you don't even have drinking water. Just drinking water to ensure that your throat is well lubricated to be able to speak for so long, you cannot do it in the county. You know, just as simple as about it. At some point, electricity, they tell you that we don't have money to pay for your electricity. The county executive side has the electricity, the county assembly side. So it means you cannot have all the sitting, especially when you are going to interrogate a matter which you know the current governor is deeply involved in. You know, these matters, if you don't separate these accounts, if you don't say that the allocation from the budget, from the treasury, it comes directly to the account of the assemblies, so that the speaker and the clerk are accountable. For the executive, it comes to the governor. The governor and the accounting officers, including the county secretary, are accountable on this matter, on the executive side. But here, you have left the MCAs at the mercy of the governors. You see? And now, today, if I do the mistake of saying that, you know, money has been stolen in agriculture, money has been stolen in transport, we don't see much agriculture happening in Nairobi, we don't see a lot of development in the transport. The governor, what will the governor do? Call and ensure that...
Yeah, Stella, the framers of this constitution did not envisage this kind of funding. Even the CDF and the NGCDF were not there. It's what we're trying to entrench now. The role of the member of the National Assembly is clear. Legislative oversight represents the same as that of the member of the County Assembly. Don't you think we're going against the law? And this, the Supreme Court has already pronounced itself on this matter, that matters to do with development are purely the role of the executive. Mm-hmm. Now, the demand by assemblies that they have to be directly involved in this.
Indimulia, this is a huge integrity issue. It's a huge integrity issue because individuals did not, first of all, get over the period when we had the CDF because there was no other way to get resources to the ground. We now have a devolved system of government that then provides a different platform where these resources are negotiated. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that has happened is that the resources that were being fought for at a national level have been devolved to the counties, and therefore the conversation on how to split that cake is happening closer to the people. By virtue of having done that, number one, you have taken away the need for MPs to be asking for CDF to go and engage in development, because there's a governor down there mm-hmm. with county assembly representatives who can actually do that work, number one. Number two, when these resources get to the county, and when Mheshimiwa Alai explains this thing, it sounds like a very noble thing. But once you have MCAs who are supposed to be checking the governor, also wanting to collaborate with the governor on spending for development, you have a problem. There's a conflict there. They should take the role of checking the governor seriously, and they can be able to call the governor out on areas where the governor is either not distributing the resources equitably or not investing the resources in a responsible manner. And the governor then has the full responsibility of making sure that development is distributed across. Mm-hmm. If the governor does not do that, there are mechanisms to deal with it, including some of these recall clauses that are available. The problem that we have is that we have had a system that constantly rewarded people surrounding themselves around the guy with the money. Mm-hmm. And so you have people wanting to move around with the president because they're assuming that the president is the one who's distributing resources to people. And then they want to move around with the governor, or they want to be close to the governor because the governor is the one who's distributing the resources. Unfortunately, that is what has led them to the place where they can't walk out of the house and not part with resources, because Kenyans are expecting those handouts. The solution is not to give award fund or give CDF. The solution is to deal with the attitude and the expectation that a member of parliament, a representative, is supposed to be handing you out mm-hmm. resources, number one. But number two, at the next level, is to make sure that when the resources get to the ground, there is accountability. The people responsible for checking the executives at both levels are actually doing that and not trying to get into the spending space. Because when they do that, everyone is eating with the other, and then you have the kind of witch hunt that Mheshimiwa Alai has been trying to describe here. And for me, the critical conversation to have now has got to do with the attitude change and stopping the attitude that you have to receive handouts for things to happen, mm-hmm. and making sure that everybody who's supposed to be checking a different office or an executive office on expenditure is actually doing that job and not looking to start, building roads or whatever it is. And
we're having this discussion at the national level with the NGCDF, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, GAF, the Senators Oversight Fund. Don't you think that this discussion about the War Development Fund should find space in that national discourse, so that if at all we're changing the laws, it should start from there instead of engaging with the governors directly? Yet the governors know I have no legal backing to do this.
that's why we brought it at the national level. And the problem, the challenge I'm having is that you're still not understanding us. We are not interested in this money. We are not interested in controlling it. We are interested in it being in the law. Then the governor is controlling the money.
Yes.
But it is in the law that out of 2 billion you give a county, Ward X is supposed to get 15% of this 2 billion. You see? So the governor does this directly with these officers, the directors, the chief officers, the CEC involved. We are not interested in touching that money. The problem is now that in these counties, the governor is not compelled by any law to give equal development or to uplift. Like there's a word called Njiru, where this whole debacle of land mess is happening. This ward has not seen a road being made since the start of devolution. You see? But that same place, Njiru and Molem, they are very close to each other. That same place is where the county has the biggest asphalt plant. Imagine asphalt, lami inachemushwa kwenu, but you cannot be built for roads. You see? And the governor is not compelled by any law. But if you put it to law, you say that in Nairobi, you have a 40 billion development budget. In this development budget, please use this percentage for administration, this percentage for this and this and that. But this percentage, share it in these measures among the wards.
How far are we on that conversation?
We already presented the CAF, the County Assemblies Forum, presented these things to the National Dialogue platform. And we say we have to change the law. Remember, the CDF, what is the CDF building? The CDF is building roads, building police stations, I think health centers and schools. Only 4 functions, only 4 things. But remember the counties, you have devolved 14 functions, including agriculture. If you don't give this distribution formula to the counties, what is happening is that you will not have, the governor, that's why you see, yesterday, I think sometimes probably you should not invite me to the TV stations, because yesterday I was at a place in Kileleshwa and I was being shown that that building belongs to Governor so-and-so. That building belongs to Governor so. And these are buildings worth 3 billion, 4 billion, structures built. Then I ask myself, where do these governors, they sell, what businesses do they do? You see? Then you realize this is probably money from the counties. And because we don't give a formula of allocation, then they can allocate how much they want for whatever project. And some of these projects are very easy to steal money from.
Do you think that it will be addressed at the National Dialogue Committee level? Because so far, the proposals about the NGCDF and these other funds for the senator and the woman representative, they've agreed on. The team has already agreed on how on entrenching them. Yet we've not had mention of that. Aren't we being unfair on the governors, forcing them to do things that are not necessarily in the law, instead of really pursuing and ensuring that this is actually entrenched in law?
But we force the president to do this. You remember why CDF came, for instance, is because people are feeling that the president was developing some areas and some areas are not being developed at all. So the president was compelled through the CDF to give the MPs, a certain amount of money to control and to say that we want to bring development. It is unfairness of the president which brought in CDF. So unfairness of the governors. If the governor is going, especially if you have a multi-ethnic, counties, where some ethnicities or some section of the community feels that we are not being given development because we cannot marshal enough numbers to elect one of our own to be the governor. You see? Then now you tell the governor that please, for every development you are doing for your county, ensure that you allocate this equal percentage to this number of wards which you have in your county. Like Nairobi, we have 85. Find a formula, give us the 85. The conversation we are having, this issue of handouts. Handouts is the culture of Kenyan politics. You cannot satisfy it with any allocation you are going to do. You cannot satisfy it with any amount of money you pay the MCAs. What we are saying on that regard is that if somebody is in Kileleshwa Today, I'm given 18,000. In fact, I'm given 109,000 per quarter. This 109,000, I'm supposed to employ 3 people, my PA and 2 support staff for ward office. Yeah, for a quarter. That means 3 months.
3 months.
So imagine, divide that by 3 months. The national labor policy does not allow me to pay the person in the category a minimum less than 30,000. This 109, how are you going to employ 3 people and pay not less than 30,000? How? Yeah. Then the other thing you have to remember, you are in Kilelesho. How much, you still have to remain with some money to rent an office. This office should not be 18,000 per month. You see, in Kilelesho, where are you going to get an office to rent for not more than 18,000?
So you need more money.
You need more money, but somebody...
To sustain the MCA.
Yeah, no, listen. This same amount you are allocating, if you give somebody in Trans Nzoia, that 18,000 is too much. Probably they'll get an office for 2,000. If you go to the rural areas, there's some places you get a very nice office, a nice compound. For 2,000 shillings, you'll get a very nice one. So find a formula, allocate the people who are in the city counties more, or in the urban counties, more than the ones in the rural counties. Then some people in the rural counties, because of the challenges they're giving, give them more allowances. Somebody in Nairobi doesn't need as much travel allowance as somebody probably in Mandera, where one ward is almost the size of a district. You see? So we find this same allocation you're giving, find a formula. Don't give everybody, not one size fits all.
Stella, it is obvious it is about the money.
It's definitely about the money, but independently, allow me to chime in on this argument. And maybe Mheshimiwa Alai is a good man who's going straight to heaven. And so he has good intentions. And even as he describes, that's why I'm saying every time, as he describes it, it's very noble. But the devil is normally in the detail. And there are mischievous people who will wait for this conversation to advance. And then they will bring in the interest of even having to manage those funds. We have seen it happen before. And it's not going to be the first time it happens. The question I'm asking myself even as I'm listening to him is, why is it that as Kenyans we find ourselves in that place where the governor is able to just decide that they're going to sideline a certain part of the community because they are few, or they're going to sideline a certain part of the community because they did not vote for them? This is why I said it's bad manners from the top manifesting on the ground. It should never even be a question. If you are a public servant, it should never even be a question about how you distribute resources for development. Everyone should be able to benefit, because taxes are not paid by the people with the biggest numbers in their communities. Taxes are not paid by the people who come out to vote. Everyone, those who vote and those who don't vote, pay taxes. And so everyone is entitled to services. When we start understanding the principle of governance, and that politics ends at it should end, but in Kenya it doesn't end. It ends at the point where we finish the elections and people are supposed to be serving Kenyans. It will change everything. Okay. The MCAs will not have to worry about whether or not their areas will get resources. The argument about how much they need to maintain the MCA's office is genuine and of course should be explored, and the platform is available on the Dialogue platform. But everything else that requires distribution of resources needs to be done in a manner that serves the interests of the people. Okay. If there's a governor who is denying resources to a certain community because they are few, and therefore their votes are not a swaying vote, these are the governors who should be recalled, not governors who cause their husbands to sing beautiful music to the county, you know?
And we love beautiful music. And I'll ask you to make your final comments as we come to the end of the session. Let's start with you, Honorable Alai.
Yeah, I think let's come out, let's protect devolution. Devolution is a very interesting thing. You know, for the first time, I'm just reading here that Samburu is announcing that the first time they have done C-section. It has never happened in the county. C-section, you know, operation. In the counties, when you have at the devolution forum, you remember for the first time, you're having a middle class of people who have never stepped into Nairobi. In the counties, somebody is a businessman, is running a very comfortable life from the rural areas, doesn't know and doesn't need Nairobi. That's how you stop rural to urban migration. And I think the counties are a very beautiful thing. What you need to do is ensure that we tighten the bolts of oversight. We ensure that we empower the wards because it's the smallest unit of representation. We ensure that there is equal development and also ensure that we control the grids of the governors who might not want to be fair to all in that regard. So, devolution is a very beautiful thing, but only if everybody is awake and everybody is protecting their turf. Thank you.
Stella, anything to add?
I'll just start from where Alai finished. Indeed, we must make sure that we protect what we have actually been able to gain through devolution, ensure that the individuals we elect to be responsible for handling our devolved governments are people who have integrity and people who are interested in serving the people. And citizens generally should come out to monitor what their governors are doing, what their MCAs are doing, to ensure that if any of them are acting in a way that is discriminative to certain parts of our society, for any reason, whether it is the fact that they did not vote for them or whether it's the fact that they think that their votes are not a sway, they should actually act on that and collaborate with their MCAs to recall those kinds of governors. I think it's completely out of order for that to be happening. I think the last thing I'll say about devolution is that power indeed has come to the people. And we would be fools to allow that power to go back to the center. It's wiser to make sure that it comes further, closer to the people. And so the conversation should be to ensure that we improve how devolution is running in the country. We even shouldn't be extremely worried about everything that is not working. These are the throes of development, and eventually we're going to perfect it.
Thank you very much, Stella Agara, governance expert, and Honorable Robert Alai, MCA Kileleshwa. Yes, matters devolution. 59 MCAs voted yesterday to impeach the Meru Governor, Kawira Mwangaza. Her fate now lies in the Senate as the process now heads there. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being our panelists this morning and for sharing your thoughts on the issues that we've been discussing. Allow me to go through this editorial comment. Now, the latest warning from the National Transport and Safety Authority about the escalating number of road accidents and fatalities on Kenyan roads is a sobering reminder of the urgent need to address road safety issues. The statistics provided, especially the fact that Nairobi, Nakuru, Machakos and Kiambu counties are collectively responsible for 36% of all the fatalities among the 47 counties, are a cause for concern. The toll of over 4,000 lives lost annually to road accidents in Kenya, with many more left with permanent disabilities, cannot be understated. These tragedies not only result in personal loss, but also disrupt families and communities, often leaving behind widows, orphans, and collapsing entire households when the breadwinners are tragically taken away. Now, the approaching festive season, when schools close and families embark on holiday travels, adds another layer of urgency to the road safety issue. This time of year typically witnesses increased road congestion and higher risks of accidents. It is essential that all road users, including motorists, passengers, and pedestrians, exercise extra caution and responsibility during this period. Now, the proposed draft National Road Safety Action Plan for 2023 to 2027 offers a glimmer of hope in the midst of these grim statistics. Establishing a multi-agency, multi-sectoral committee to provide a national strategic direction for implementing road safety policies is a positive step forward. Now, this approach recognizes that road safety is a complex issue that requires collaboration among various stakeholders, including government agencies, law enforcement, and civil society. However, the success of this plan will ultimately depend on its effective implementation. It is not enough to have well-intentioned policies